Hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. I thought that was a dog for 1 second.
Oh my God.
Wow, she has a
What is
dog.
that? What is that?
It's a mic so you don't hear the wind or touch.
It's movement. I want to wear it as like earmuffs.
That's the audio.
I think we can take inspiration from this and make this like a new one in season 2.
Yes.
This is Aaron. I'm Jeff. This is Brad.
Hello.
We have a band.
What's it called?
Daybreak band.
We're very clever.
Snakes Vargas.
So what can we help you with?
Yeah.
So I'll start. So the show goes from genre to comedy to graphic drama. So I was wondering, how did you balance that when creating the show from episode to episode?
Yeah, Aaron. How did we do that?
Very carefully. It's a tightrope. I mean, look, the thing that when we really started talking about this, we talked about Buffy. Buffy was a really touch point show for us because it could combine all the things together that we loved. It had horror, it had humor, and it had heart. And the ability to balance those things out. So when looking at the show, it was really about finding ways in every single episode to have all three of those touch points and carry them forward and make that the total consistency of the show, because if you can make somebody scared and make somebody laugh and make somebody cry in a single hour of television, then we've accomplished it. Yeah. And we took that ethos into the writer's room, and it was a real difficulty of like, what's too goofy? What is our tone? What's our humor? Where does it lie? Yeah. And when we started telling everything just from our character's POV, then we knew that we could accomplish that.
I think it's also a perfect combination of us. Brad is an expert at action genre. I think I'm funny, probably not.
Pretty funny.
And
You're smarter than the two of us combined.
Heart and soul better than anyone. I mean, he really filled these characters out and made them.
Well, and it was important, I think,
voices.
like we always were trying to balance, like it's good to be funny, but if you're not worried and you don't have stakes and you don't have emotion, then you don't really care. So it's like, how do you balance those two things out? Like, you know, I don't have a long history of comedy, but you could tell what's funny, and so it's like, I don't want this to get so funny that you just don't care about them, and so we started leaning into that in the writing, like, make these emotions real, make the stakes real, and then still have fun and still be optimistic in this world.
And hopefully, you know, Brad built this incredible world that's just, you know, it's huge and it's batshit. Actually, it's two worlds, so yeah.
Batshit one's the apocalypse.
Right. The other thing is, we are not, like, there's no comedy writers in our writer's room. I don't come from a comedy background, and I wouldn't say that we write jokes. I think that we write humor.
Yeah.
We just do what's funny to us and what feels right for the characters. And the other thing is, the allegory of the show just lent itself to fitting all those tropes and all those genres. Because if the allegory of the show is surviving high school is hell, and surviving high school is like surviving the apocalypse, then we could take that into the show of surviving the apocalypse is just like being in high school. And we could balance all those things, because being in high school is fraught. It's emotional, it's terrifying, but it's also the best time of your life.
It was one of the things too with Brian Ralph's graphic novel. There was two things, right? There was the graphic novel is known for like the character looking directly at the reader. So even though we get compared to Ferris Bueller, and rightfully so, we have Ferris Bueller in the show, it initiated from the graphic novel. And then the second thing was the tone, and largely the tone was a kid who's like, the apocalypse is awesome. And I was like, that's amazing, you know, because it was telling the guys, like, initially when I went for the graphic novel, I was like, I don't want to say the movie, but it was a movie that has technology, but for some reason everyone's wearing like leather and boots, and I was like, why aren't there a pair of Nikes in this movie? Like, no, it was only like 50 years later, and I was like, I would, if the apocalypse happened, I'd go down the street and get Nikes. I'd steal a Ferrari. Like, I'd go have fun. And the kid had that. He had that optimism. So that carried through the show in a big way. Because it was like, okay, the apocalypse is terrible. We're all used to that story. But what if you were a kid and you're like, my high school life sucked, and the apocalypse came and you were like, I'm going to steal a Ferrari. You're like, suddenly like, this is the best. I can do whatever I want. So we love that kind of like overall tone of like, you can reinvent yourself. It doesn't matter what happened in high school. We can be whoever we want to be.
Really, the apocalypse for us was breathable fabrics. Moisture wicking, breathable fabrics.
Is there a specific scene that you're excited for the fans to see?
Bloodbath. Episode 1. Very happy with that one.
That's a good one.
That's a very good one.
Every scene. I think it's awesome. I love watching the show, and I think that's a dream for me, is to be able to be part of a show. And
What's
love
yours? Do you have
watching
a favorite one?
I do not have a favorite scene. There's one scene that makes me cry every single time.
Is that The Witch and Angelica?
It is not.
Oh, because that one makes
That
me.
scene,
that gets
is
me
fantastic.
every
that
time.
relationship is amazing.
Yes, I agree.
But there's one scene that makes me cry every single time, and I can't say what it is.
Spoilers.
Is that the scene where everyone dies?
And scene.
That doesn't happen. That does not happen. I'm kidding.
Were there any what was the most challenging aspect of adapting the graphic novel to your show?
Aaron?
Throwing it out and starting fresh?
No. Say that.
Everything was challenging about this.
Yeah.
And from world creation to getting all the little details right, it was because this is a really genre-literate audience, and we know who we're writing for, and we can't give them more of the same. We have to constantly be reinventing and turning things on their head and surprising the audience. What I like as a viewer is to be surprised. All I want is to be surprised every single episode, that I don't know where the story is going, and you're being taken on a ride.
We definitely do that.
And so that we needed to bake that into the series. So in shifting perspectives and doing different point of views, almost every single episode felt like it was rewriting a pilot. And writing pilots are extremely difficult because you have to really dig deep into their point of view. What are they thinking? They are the star of their own movies. What does their movie look like? Yeah. And so when we're doing that, when you're really reinventing the language of the show almost episode to episode, it's really hard because it's almost like starting over fresh.
From my perspective, like one of the things visually is everyone's seen Mad Max Fury Road, all right? So that making of book is fantastic. It's one of the best making of books. And I remember bringing that into the art department and I said, okay, so here's the bar, right? Like, now they had 2 years to do this. We have 2 months, you know? So it's like, you got, because I knew the production designers did a bunch of my movies, and I was like, I'm serious, like, it's gotta be this good. It can't look like this. This has been done. We have to do this new, like with a comedic slant and true to our world and everything. And so like everyone was like, oh my God, he's serious. Like I was like, yeah, I'm serious. Like we need to do that. And then when I would look at Aaron in the writer's room and I was like, they're gonna define each of these, they have to define each of these characters. No one can take a back seat because everyone's getting their own, time. So I was like, it is like doing a pilot over and over, and so much care went into every single one of these cast members popping in the biggest way possible. So like no one got kind of shortchanged whatsoever, which was, I thought, very impressive. Because a lot of times you'll watch a show and you're like, these 4 characters are the main characters, and these 6, we'll get to know them a little bit. This show, it's like, you get to tell who everyone is very clearly. The characters are so well drawn, so well written, the voices are so clear. So yeah, that was a big challenge.
And just the scope of trying to tackle 10 episodes of a show like this is very hard
With world
from a production
creation.
standpoint. But
Yeah.
every time we needed to make a shift, whether it be budget, time, weather, we made a creative change that I feel actually ended up making it better. I think when you're put on your heels and you're stretched to your creative
Limits.
nether limits.
Nether limits? They're really bad.
It's when you make a pivot that ends up being the best decision you've made.
I think
that's to a lot of
that's the job, right? That's the task. As a creative person, you never ever feel like you have enough money or time or whatever. So you're always like, how can I make this? Like Terry Gilliam told me when I was so lucky to sit down with him, he's like, I only do my best work when they put a fence around me and I'm forced to jump over it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get that, because if you tell me, like, we only have this much time, we only have this much money, and we can only have Olivia until 8 o'clock, I'm like, okay, now I know the challenge, and now I can outdo myself, And so it was constantly what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
It's also how you up your game creatively. Like when we get together, it's like we want to try to up each other's game and make the best thing. Like you always kind of feel like, well, if there's no season 2, let's make season 1 the best season possible.
For Brad and I, it was a real luxury. The last series we did, we had about 6 cents per episode.
Yeah,
so
and he led to the show, so he had to get
nice.
paid back in the end.
Right.
Yeah, we did a show Frontier, and it was like a third the size of this show, and it was brutal.
Yeah.
What else?
Did you bring any new sort of gangs to the show at all?
I'm sorry?
Did you bring any new gangs to the show?
We hope we brought lots of new gangs to the show.
Yeah.
We only brought
And-
new gangs.
And I mean, because it is about finding your tribe. It's about all these different tribes of kids and how they click together. And so we do have jocks and we do have cheerleaders, but our cheerleaders are quite different in that they're cheer mazans, and their style. Michael Grant, our wardrobe designer, who just did the most amazing job designing these outfits for them. It has all this wish fulfillment in it, and yet still kick ass. It's brilliant. We also
Even
have
our version of zombies,
and even our version of
which
zombies.
is super funny.
And each tribe has a tag. This is the jock tag. Jock, see, it's a bar. Well, the smiley face.
Everything in the show is like that.
Yeah.
Everything in the show is like that. Wesley's shirt has all this Japanese print. It actually says Daybreak in Japanese. Like, the show has a million layers of, like,
Little
where did that
Easter
come
eggs.
from? Like, one of the things that, and this is him, and I thought this was brilliant, you know, because in the comic, there was a world of zombies. And we're like, we can't just do zombies again. Now, first of all, the tone isn't like, how are we going to survive? It's more like, who am I going to be? Where am I going to belong, right? It's a very coming-of-age story. And he said, I have an idea for the zombies. What if they say the last stupid thing they were thinking? So, like, literally every zombie in the show, what's some of the lines they say? Like,
They say,
The
is
new
it,
David Chang's restaurant is awesome sauce.
they say, I should really get off of Facebook. It's toxic.
yeah,
Why does
divisive.
Hollywood keep making graphic novels into movies? Derivative.
So, like, literally
They
the
say,
zombies
is it-
are walking around, our ghoulies are walking around going, why does Hollywood keep making these stupid graphic novels into movies? Over and over and over. So, like, everything in our show has this angle to it that's like, we know what you might be thinking. We're not doing that. We're doing this, you
Do
know?
you need us to get up?
Yeah.
Sorry, you need to.
So sorry.
The pretty people.
Shit, I gotta leave.